we're gonna call this meeting to order. Time is now 7:12 p.m. Madam Secretary, you prepared to take minutes?
So go.
Okay, we are now in order. I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening for the Executive Committee meeting for Brooklyn Committee Board 9. This is our last meeting for 2024, exec meeting. So I want to thank everyone, start by saying thank you to all the members of the Executive Committee. I want to say thank you to all the chairs for all the work you've done and for providing that leadership that we need here in CB9 on the committee level. All right. We're going to try and go through this as quickly as possible. I know this is probably going to be an abbreviated agenda. I am anticipating a quicker meeting this month as well, typically as we experience in December. But I want to make sure we're also able to just kind of get up to speed in terms of what's cooking in each of the committees as well, and if there's any larger issues that we should be discussing. All right, so with that, we are now going to go straight into the committee chair check-in, item number 2. Let me see. Economic development, do you have a report for this month?
Yeah, we did a shop small guide and we finished it.
Right.
Wow, I can't believe it. I just got it like a minute ago, so I haven't like totally looked at it all, but basically we just need to get this to a QR code. Can you help us make the QR code? And then we're done for now.
I got it.
Until businesses change tomorrow. But it's good for today, so we can give people a QR code at the meeting on Thursday, and they can see every corridor. It's all organized by retail or food or whatever. So yeah, all the businesses are in here.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's the way to lead off an executive meeting.
yeah, I'm
So
impressed with us.
Are there any plans to like make it online?
It is, it's gonna be, it's all here. Like you can just search by corridor, and then you can search by whatever, food and drink or barber shop or,
That's the Birtland Gazette.
huh?
That's the Birtland Gazette.
There you go.
We'll rebrand it for our purposes.
Are there any plans to get like press outlets to talk about it and like announce that it's
I
going
don't
on?
know.
You know what, and that's a fantastic idea. Maybe we should consider doing a press release for that.
Yeah,
I think it's good,
we
you know.
did a thing, yeah.
Maybe the Brooklyn Gazette should have it in it, you know?
I know I just walked in, is this pertaining to the merchants?
Yeah, we did a shop small guide for all the corridors, organized by type alphabetically. And we'll have a QR code on Thursday for everybody so they can search for whatever they need for the holidays or after. Yeah.
Yes.
Shalisa stepped up big time to help us organize this.
Nice.
And actually, she hadn't been to a few meetings, so I was a little annoyed, but then she really stepped up big time, so,
There was a balance.
yeah, there was a balance.
All right, so she made it. She's atoned.
Yeah, for sure.
That's fantastic.
For sure.
All right, so let's do that. So that's fantastic news. So looking for that launch. So Thursday's the proposed launch. So if we can, it'd be great if we see if we can get a press release that goes along. I mean, that's fantastic work that you guys have done. I think it's just a community service. It's valuable. So thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah.
So, even bigger things coming from the committee now. So.
Yeah. I'm
Said let me
I
just
think-
try it.
You got a
I think
small
also-
shop, guys?
A good addition
What's
to
it
that might be to make it into a Google map so people can
Well,
have
you can
that
click
their
on each
businesses.
name and it'll bring you to the Google Map listing, actually.
Okay.
So who does that?
No,
Yeah.
I think it brings you to the map of those the businesses like individually, right?
Yeah, it'll bring you, like, it'll go alphabetically and you'll be like, oh, what's Amy's Tie? You click on it and it'll bring you to the Google listing.
Right. So my suggestion is like maybe in addition, maybe I can do it, but it doesn't take long. Someone could probably make an actual map
But
arrangement.
isn't that just a Google Map?
Right. Yeah. So you can see where they are. Maybe if you're near one, you can open the map and.
But doesn't that just like exist as a Google Map? You know what I mean?
We're talking about like a map with all of the businesses.
So you just see all the
Right.
flags
Yeah.
for the business.
Flags for each one.
Yeah.
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 Beta NYC
Like
is good at that.
They do that. There's
Beta
also like a
NYC
New York
is
City
good at
bathroom map where you can see all the public
Right.
bathrooms near you. Those things are useful too. And they'll be pretty easy since it's one small area.
Sounds
I mean,
like
I
he's
can do it.
volunteering.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was about to
I
tell
can do
you
it.
that.
Like, it's
Okay.
Okay.
Doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
Great.
And then, and here's the thing, I mean, obviously this is a great start where we're getting that, and we can always do the enhancements as we go along, so as
Totally.
people have ideas,
Yeah.
so this is great.
Yeah.
This is great,
So,
fantastic.
so the name, correct name is CB9 Shop Small Guide.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Wow, with that, any questions from the members of the exec?
Oh, that's good.
No, we're good.
We already asked them.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much again.
Yeah.
Full house.
So people need a minute to get together. Environmental protection, do you have a report this month?
Yes, we do. Do you know if they got their minutes today?
If Khalid has them, he has them, but I don't see.
Okay, that's okay. So we had, what's his name, Mr. Wither, from the SNY, Wither? We had someone present, from the SNY on the, containerization
Okay.
and all the questions that people have and, you know, the fact that everyone may not be able to afford that, and, you know, in terms of not the 1 to, not, was it 1 to 9? And the other one is a larger building, how they are, you know, going to put out and, you know, be able to contain everything in, you know, the smaller garbage cans or the larger ones, if it's like a bigger complex. So there's a lot of questions pertaining to that, but it was helpful that he came and, you know, presented as much as he knew and was able to answer, you know, some of the concerns that we raised at the meeting, at this month's meeting. You know, so that was helpful. And hopefully, you know, we can do, schedule something with them to come out, maybe at one of the general board meetings, so that everyone has an idea as to what this entails and, you know, if they have questions, you know, they can be answered.
I mean, they would want to do a presentation one month, so we could have them come in.
Yeah.
Like, how long was the presentation they gave you?
Well, it was, you know, the committee, so it's more or less a smaller version of what, you know, it may be for, you know, a general board meeting.
Well, we probably need a smaller version. We probably need a smaller
Well, I
version of
mean,
what
they'd
the
have
committee.
to, you know,
Right.
kind of contain the amount that they have to share and maybe present, you know, provide additional paper or whatever on that, you know, although a lot of the stuff is on the website, but, it's good to know. And I mean, some of the questions that, you know, we had, he wasn't able to fully answer them, but said that he would get back to us on that, yeah. So, his name was, is it on here? Antonio Walker from DSNY. Yeah.
And what we could look at.
He was not, we wanted the chief for this district, however, you know, we were happy to have Mr. Walker here.
And along those lines, and as I said, if it's something that's gonna be at the board, would be at the board, we probably need something that's much shorter.
Much, yeah,
But alternatively, what we could do is, and this is where we can leverage the technology, we could, you know, if they're willing to do a Zoom, we could host a Zoom.
okay,
So that might be an option, you know, we can discuss that as well, where it's like, you know, maybe they can get people, and especially as, it's winter time, so people might not wanna come out. It might just be easier to just set that up and have that conversation.
okay.
All right, so thank you very much. Oh, so I'm sorry, does that conclude your report, or you had more?
No, that was all we had for that, I mean, for this month meeting,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Pretty much the focus was on that because, you know, we had questions and this stuff was rolling out. So, or the other thing that we are contemplating is, as a committee, to put a letter out asking them to push it back because some of their deadlines I mean, if people ordered these cans and they haven't received it yet, you cannot ask them to comply by January 2nd, you know, to make sure that, you know, your garbage is contained, right? Although the deadline is July of 2025.
So is that when they're
So,
enforcing it, or what is it?
yeah, so,
Okay.
No, they start giving out tickets, I think in January.
right, exactly. So I told him, I said, those dates are not, you know, good dates, you know, for everyone to be able to just roll into this project or plan, you know, when they are not, they don't have the cans, and some people may not be able to afford. Some people may say, I already have cans, that's what I wanna use, so things like that, need to be ironed out.
Did they show any willingness to roll back the dates?
Well, some of the community boards, I mentioned to him that, it makes sense to, at least consider changing those dates, but, he's just a messenger, so more or less, we can actually follow up to see, but we plan to do a letter and, send it to, DSNY. I know that some community boards have already done so,
Any
So
other
that's the
questions?
plan.
Any other, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Question, comment. I noticed he said that in the future that the sanitation department was going to have the machines that actually lifted.
Yeah, but that's down the road, they're not even
Way
ready
down
for
the road?
that,
Okay,
yeah.
so people are spending their money now is what gets me, and then later on they're gonna be asked to spend their money again to get a
Well, their
different
focus
garbage
now is
can.
the rats.
Okay.
'Cause, the containerization is because of that.
This is you.
So, down the road, I guess they'll figure out, the trucks and how they equip them for, I don't know how far down the road, but that's the
So these
actual
containers
plan.
aren't liftable, they won't,
No.
And how is that gonna work with the cars and the cars?
Well, all those questions came
All
up,
those
so
were
they have to
asked.
iron all those things out.
Not a rat, so stay with us. You can't have it.
They're very heavy.
Yeah,
Lift.
yeah, but I saw them in California, I think they have them in Staten Island somewhere. In New York
would
somewhere.
have what, the,
But I saw them in operation in California, so you roll your thing out and the truck comes. But these people have their garages and things, so, the streets are open to them picking it up and dumping it, one person, dumping it in the thing and dropping your can and keep on going. So, yeah.
any other questions from the exec? Chairs, any questions as well, or? Okay, the one thing I'll say is, Dante, is this something do you think we might be able to do is just draft a letter saying that we still have concerns about the execution of this because of maybe due to the timing?
Well, no, Kendall is going to be doing that, so we as a committee will draft it and, send it to Dante.
Okay,
Can I just make a kind of land use related note? So when this plan first came out, they hired McKinsey to do this big consulting report. And the conclusion of the report was essentially that higher density areas were gonna have much more difficulty complying because there's just more garbage per square, linear footage of sidewalk frontage. And so that's just to kind of, and plus, with street parking as opposed to all detached houses with all street parking, like what other cities have, there's issues with the automatic pickup. So this is just to kind of make the connection between density and other infrastructure issues. That we just, there's limits to mitigation, it gets to the point where we can't comply.
But.
And so the McKinsey report actually recommended exempting downtown Manhattan and certain other very high density areas from compliance altogether, so. It's just.
Well, there's, like I said, there's a lot of work to do, overall in DSNY. So I guess they have a lot of things that they need to iron out before they fully, get this thing rolling the way that they really want it to be. Just as you mentioned, now we have problems with the sweeper, coming through with parked cars and all these things. So there's a lot that needs to be.
and that's the reason why, even as it rolls out, we'll do this letter, because I think it's important to look at these issues.
I'm
But
sorry?
I said, it's important that, especially when the letter comes out before the rollout, but we definitely need to make sure we're vigilant and kind of getting the feedback from, because to Suki's point. Yeah, it's gonna be painful, especially in some, where you have bigger buildings and where there's more density in the district, so we gotta watch for that. So maybe that's something we can keep an eye out for and kind of see if we can solicit feedback in terms of how is this working or if it's not working. So, no, but thank you very much for that. So as soon as Kendall can get that letter to Dante, we can see if we can send that off just to kind of put that out there where it's like, maybe this is not a good idea to start handing out tickets, January 1st.
Yeah,
All right, thank you very
yeah,
much for that.
thank you.
Okay, Suki, as
Oh, okay. So we had a newer application before us, 7399 Empire Boulevard. And that was rolled over from the previous month. And so this month we did vote and we were able to get a majority on the resolution. Essentially, the committee a majority of the committee does support, in fact, I would guess all of the committee really does support the developer's proposals for commercial development with parking. But it was more difficult to get agreement on the residential portion for a variety of different reasons. Some people do not like the amount of height and density that's being proposed by the developer. Some people want deeper affordability, like a higher percentage of affordability. Some people are concerned about the precedent that we would be setting relative to other blocks of Empire that could undergo this type of rezoning. So I think it is a little bit difficult with the existing menu of options and the existing way that MIH is structured to find the right fit between what the developer wants on the commercial side and what we want to see in terms of all the other things. So we ultimately ended up by just voting a no with conditions that we support, and I think the resolution went out to the office. I don't know if it's gone out to all of you yet, but essentially that we, actually maybe Dante, if you could print the resolution now and hand it out, that essentially just to say we support the commercial proposal, and on the residential portion, while we do support mandating affordable housing, we want to see greater affordability than what MIH proposes, which is in line with the Councilmember Hudson's housing framework. She already announced that. And we want to see a 9-story height cap, and which is in line with our zoning framework. And of course, you know, we do understand that the council member is likely to negotiate further from, you know, where we're at. And I actually spoke to Andre Robinson on the phone, and he confirmed that, you know, we're kind of headed in the right direction and that we should give her some room to negotiate, but give her guidance on what are the things that matter to us. And so I think we're, you know, headed in the right track. And then the second thing we voted on was to start working on a district-wide housing plan, because starting in 2025, HPD is going to be looking at this for every district, coming up with housing targets, and that's pursuant to the city council legislation that was passed in January of 2021. And so we agreed to do it by splitting up into groups for each quadrant of the district, like basically kind of splitting it along New York Avenue and Empire Boulevard. I think we've done this exercise before, and I think it's really the way to go because different parts of our district tend to have A, different zoning, B, different needs and different preferences. And so I think in order to be able to give each area, you know, their due and their preference, as well as making sure that you know, meet any overall district needs and you know, kind of be able to negotiate with what the city wants of us, we need to split up first. And we kind of went over in terms of like what the numbers look like potentially from a citywide point of view, that you know, we've already built about 4,000 units from 2010 to today. We have over 2,000, almost 2,500 units that are fully permitted. Most of them actually are in larger buildings. A lot of people aren't aware of this. And I think about 2,300 of the 2,500 are in buildings of over 50 units. And about 800 of those are going to be affordable at or below 80% of AMI. And where that's coming from is the previous Franklin Avenue rezoning, those two huge buildings on Crown and Montgomery, and the two Vital Brooklyn developments that are going forward already on Clarkson, and on Utica. And of course, you know, there are 2 additional Vital Brooklyn developments that haven't started yet on Rutland and then the Kingsborough Psych. And the Kingsborough Psych was the other thing that we discussed. People wanted a formal opinion from the elected officials, including the New York State Attorney General and the New York City Corporation Council, on how they're going to extinguish the deed reverter provision in the Kingsborough Psych deed. Essentially, there's a provision in the deed dating back to the, I don't know, like early 1900s or 1920s, when the land was originally transferred from the city to the state, to say that if the land was ever not used for hospital purposes, that it would revert back to the city. And of course, we know that if it does revert back to the city, then any disposition of city-owned land has to follow the ULURP process. And so they would need to come to us and negotiate, you know, through us and the council member, as opposed to what they're doing now, which is if it's state-owned property, they get to override the city ULURP process, which has been a sticking, you know, like a real sore point for a lot of people. So we think that they already have a plan to extinguish a deed reverter. I mean, this deed condition was mentioned in the RFP, so everybody knows about it. It's just how are they gonna do it? Is there gonna be a public hearing? You know, is there gonna be a council vote? So we would like answers to all of these questions. It's also raised that a lot of the you know, that people don't want town hall meetings on this subject to be held on Saturday, because that excludes, you know, many members of the community. And that's, you know, so we're asking for the office to send those letters. I think that Rita Joseph already responded to some people to say that she was having city council's legal counsel look at the issue, but nobody's heard back an answer. So, you know, if we can follow up on that, and that's it.
All right, so in terms of action items for the, well, okay, so in terms of action items, I hear that we have the Empire Boulevard resolution,
Right here.
which is right before us, which is gonna be a no with conditions that you've outlined here. Not an action item, but this is a project working on district-wide housing plan.
Yes.
Is there anything else that needs to be voted on for this, at this month's meeting?
The district-wide housing, oh yeah, that's an action item. The letters to the elected officials, does that need to be voted on, or you guys are just gonna take care
I
of
think we
it?
can just do that.
We did.
Okay.
We can just do that.
And so I guess Dante just handed out this resolution.
If those are requests for information, I think we can just do that. All right, just a quick question, and then I'll open it up to the exec. So for the housing plan, I'm interested in that. How long are you looking, how long do you anticipate to develop that?
I mean, we asked people to cut the little sub-working groups to come back, with information, like how many units of housing are permitted as of right in their quadrant, what is the target that they want to see, and I actually think I might, recommend to them an additional working group for commercial spaces, and maybe we can involve economic development, because I think the zoning issues involved with the all commercial spaces on Empire, Utica, and Clarkson are more involved, than the residential zoning issues, or like the regular, like residential and commercial overlay issues. And so I think that, it might be a good idea to have another working group of people who are interested specifically in that. And maybe someone from economic development wants to join in with that.
And I'll probably throw in with this one, so housing.
So I don't know, so how long is it gonna take? I mean, it depends on whether people do the work that they've said they're gonna do, but I would not expect it to take more than a couple months.
Okay. No, that's fair,
I mean, a
that's
lot of the
great.
information is there already, it's just people kind of like wrapping their heads around this and deciding what they want.
Big increases.
So just one point along those lines as well is, so we're working on restructuring the housing committee a little bit as well. And I think one of the projects that we did want that restructure committee to do is to really look at housing, and even in terms of the needs, like what kind of a housing mix, what kinds of services are we looking for, because I think that's important, that informs that as well.
Yeah.
Not just how much do you build, but what kind do you build? And what are we talking about of the real housing needs in the district along the line, and again, including that information about what's the AMI, what is the profile of the district, so definitely, let's make sure we're communicating with that, and as we set housing up, we wanna make sure we're talking
And
about
we did talk about that a little bit as well. I think there, was a strong, kind of sense among the committee members that there's a lack of housing below the 50% of AMI level, that there's a significant number of people in our community at that level
Absolutely.
whose needs are not being addressed, although a lot of the existing housing is kind of up to the 80% of AMI level because people want rent stabilized housing. But at the same time, I'm also hearing from, individuals in certain parts of the community, like, I want condos, that addresses, and that happened at the previous, discussion about Empire Boulevard, when we were talking about Troy Avenue, like, well, some people want condos, that addresses the needs of some people, so, there may be some parts of the district where there's different needs or whatever, and, I think that it would be a good idea to open it up to the housing committee and to hear about what they, want. And then there's parts of the district where people are actually very sensitive about the deeply low income housing because it tends to imply supportive housing and they feel like they have too much already. So like there's just gonna be different, like different pushes in different parts of the district, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this is gonna be a very, very layered conversation.
It's not easy.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not
not.
an easy
Oh,
conversation
absolutely.
to have, but hopefully, like we hear from everybody and we try to do something that helps
Right.
everyone.
No, absolutely. Okay, all right, thank you. Any questions from the executive?
So Esteban, he had mentioned something about how you can ensure the development of, in the direction of these developers. There was a method or a way of doing so.
Yeah, so, given that people were not really satisfied with the way the existing mandatory inclusionary housing program works, the only other way to mandate housing on a particular site as opposed to leaving it up to the developers, would be through a deed restriction. And that is essentially what MIH does. Except that MIH is like a broadly public program. Deed restrictions can be done privately, and he said something about how Board 8 set up like a nonprofit corporation to, enforce the deed restrictions and things like that. And actually, I have to tell you, that's what my neighborhood does, the Lefferts Manor Association. We're a nonprofit, and we enforce our deed restrictions that exist on our homes for single family housing. It's expensive, you have to go to court, you have to have money to do this. But like I'd like to hear more from him. I think that's an interesting idea. If, what the city overall is doing is not working for us, maybe we need to, come up with our own thing.
Okay, did you want to make a transition?
No,
All right, let's go for it.
I wouldn't mind that. Okay, so in the last couple meetings, well, beyond that, we've been doing a lot of surveys, as we all know by now, about people's opinions on the DOT school safety plan that happens to involve bike lanes and other adjustments to streets. And as of now, so some of the survey results we still have from those who took the survey. Not everyone lived in District 9. Overall, those who do live and those who don't, about 86% of the responses were in favor of it. This is the original DOT school safety plan before the committee adjustments. 42% were against it. About 2% were neutral. This is out of 384 responses. And for those who live in the district, about 269 of them took the survey And out of those, 43% were in favor of it, and 56% were against it, 2% were neutral on average. So a chunk of our attention has been on this because you've been getting feedback pretty much every day. Some positive, some negative, some in between. And it largely matches up to what we expected. We expected folks to be maybe about a 60-40 split or close to that, maybe a little more even than that, on the bike lane terms. And in some ways it's actually more positive than we thought because we didn't factor in protected bike lanes. We figured that would have been much more opposed than it actually would. But overall, it's in line with what we expected. So we're open to any more adjustments you might want to bring in. I've heard feedback on the Fenimore and Rutland bike lanes and that they might not be necessary. It's fair feedback, and I'm open to any more adjustments to that because I think the entire plan is I can see how people think it's risky because, having protected bike lanes, which could present a new environment for someone leaving a vehicle or a child leaving a vehicle, some might see as an issue. So I think part of this would be kind of also pressing DOT for a bit more demonstration on how they see that to be safe versus, on the current condition. I mean, it's pretty clear that if you have a child leaving a vehicle onto a sidewalk, that might be safer assuming than exiting and having to, maybe exit onto a buffer before a bike lane comes in. Right? So DOT clearly sees it as a safe thing, and I respect that, but I'd like them to potentially show us how. Right? Explain why that's a safer outcome than having a curb on the other side of the vehicle. I'm also gonna focus on the fact that they have been found to be safe in rural. The data shows that new lanes are generally safe and improve safety for pedestrians and drivers, but we want to see how that comes in when schools and children are involved in that situation. That's the first item that we have been tackling a lot over the past few months. The second one is traffic calming. Washington Avenue is missing some crosswalks. There are intersections that people have been killed at, and it's alarming because it's next to the Botanic Gardens, it's next to some of our biggest attractions. It's a bit surprising.
One intersection.
One?
Yes. Washington Avenue and Montgomery. That is the most dangerous intersection in Washington Avenue.
Is there a crosswalk at Crown too?
There's crosswalk all up Washington Avenue except for that intersection.
That's part of that bodega, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's where the cars turn into Montgomery.
Okay.
And that's when the cars zoom up and down because the camera is all the way down on Sullivan. So it doesn't pick up the cars after they pass maybe 50, 60 yards. The camera doesn't work. So they speed after that. And there is no cameras going down towards Empire. So you're gonna find the cars are gonna zoom within that window. And that's what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to get those crosswalks on Washington and Montgomery, at least some lit signs that says either stop or yield to pedestrians so people can go across and move around. And that's not gonna interfere with buses and that's gonna interfere with anything. We're just gonna slow down the traffic because we cannot use bumps on that particular stretch. So we have to get an alternative to slowing down the traffic.
Okay. Well, my mistake there. I think I meant 2 crosswalks, not 2 intersections.
You're probably gonna need more than 2. You're gonna need sort of like a square, like they have in the middle of Midtown, a square, and then in that square, you're gonna put there's already one crosswalk on Montgomery. So you're gonna need 2 on Washington.
You
One
mean
on each side.
like a mid-block crosswalk you referred to?
No, I mean I need a full crosswalk
At the intersection.
in the intersection, in the
So
middle
basically,
of,
there's one on
yeah.
Montgomery right here. He's talking about the 2
Two.
on
Yes,
Washington
on Washington.
that way, because the other side would be the other side of the street. So
And then get the traffic sign either saying
Slow
yield to
down. Yeah, 2 crosswalks.
Yeah,
For
2
you, that's
crosswalks.
the street. That's it, yeah, that's it.
And then get the sign saying either yield to pedestrians or a full stop,
Right.
one or the other.
Yeah,
That's gonna stop that whole thing.
okay. We've been trying to get that for a while. DOT has not been, we haven't been getting any feedback. Dante, have you heard anything? Dante's been reaching out.
Washington Avenue, they're supposed to commence
Right.
a Washington Avenue, whatever they call it, not revitalization, some type of plan, in 2025. When in 2025? Don't know that yet, but it's supposed to happen.
You have to be careful with that too, because they did that already, they did that twice. And part of their plan was to shut down
The
Clausen.
I remember.
And that is just a non-starter, because the bus goes exactly through that place.
Question, I'm sorry, go ahead, finish it then I'm done.
Okay. Yeah, so we actually are looking to sort of beat DOT to the punch. In light of a slow response on Washington Avenue, we're considering expanding our idea of Washington Avenue into a district-wide traffic calming plan, where we use a bit of DOT's own traffic calming toolbox to help improve safety conditions throughout the district. One of the tools that we're looking at is raised crosswalks, where you have a sort of a truncated speed bump on the crosswalk, so that drivers slow down and people are trying to cross the street as opposed to slowing down mid-block and speeding back up to beat the light if they have one in front of them. Raised crosswalks also happen to be one of the most preferred traffic calming methods in this district, according to Rabbi Berman's 900% study on DOT's traffic calming plan, the school safety plan initially. There was a part of the survey that asked people what their preferred method of traffic calming was, and by far the largest share was in favor of raised crosswalks, which makes a ton of sense and seems to be very underutilized, at least in our
So
area.
what does a raised crosswalk look like?
It looks like a speed bump, but it's where people cross. It's underneath the crosswalk, essentially.
Okay, and so it covers the entire striped area of the crosswalk, or
Yeah,
what?
and sometimes a little bit outside of that area too.
And then in terms of, how usually the pavement slopes down towards the crosswalk, because I wanna make sure that this isn't gonna be like bumpy for
Buses.
people with wheelchairs or whatever to cross.
Right.
And then, also like he's saying.
If installed correctly, it's actually pretty seamless. I've used them before. You see them a lot in Europe and in some other countries. It's almost, it can almost be easier to have that configured with sloped sidewalk.
With the slope sidewalk, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it would slope into a straight path as opposed to an asphalt.
This is probably better for a wheelchair, so you don't have to go down and then.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
It would also kind of eliminate the little pooling of water you see when it rains a lot, because it
That'd
would
be
roll
huge.
off.
That would be
Yeah,
huge.
it would roll off the raised crosswalk.
Yeah,
That'd be huge.
I agree.
The only thing
So-
about as a driver is that there should be signs that say that there is a raised crosswalk. Cause I've driven and
Yeah,
then I
they-
hit it and I'm like, what did I just hit?
Typically,
Yeah.
there are supposed to be signs
Okay.
and markings on the road too, like the bump paint
The
in the
bump is
street.
there, but these are fairly new, in my opinion, and
New where?
I've driven, I forgot where I drove.
I haven't seen one yet.
They're not popular in New York City, but they are popular elsewhere.
It was somewhere in Brooklyn, I drove Brooklyn or in Queens. 'Cause
Probably in
it was a
Queens.
drive. And
Yeah, once the
I didn't
street
know I
curves
was
off.
on it until after I passed it, and I turned, because,
That's it.
Right.
so.
Is it another
But
squirrel?
It was a little bumpy, but
You were
it
taken
is
by
a
surprise.
good thing.
Yeah.
I was taken by surprise.
And in
As long
line-
as there's signs before that say raised crosswalk.
Which is very standard to have those signs, so they should be there regardless. And also in light of the issue that Nelson Stugel had with a driver flying into their storefront on Fenimore, it might be a good way to solve all the issues at one time with the speeding issue with people on, Rutland, Fenimore, Kingston, Brooklyn. That may have been an issue, and it might be a way to calm traffic without that bike lane being there. Because I know that's one of DOT's methods for reducing visual road width so they can get most to slow down. a raised crosswalk there might help that business, it might help the people who live there, and it might also probably reduce the need for that conventional bike lane going in. But that's what we're looking at now.
Will they install a raised crosswalk on the bus route or truckers?
Well, we're not planning them for any bus routes. We're looking mostly at residential streets for that. I don't think we'll be proposing it for bus routes, at least not yet.
Well, actually, is it Washington, doesn't?
Washington, they have a 48 bus.
Yeah, 40 bus.
No, we're not ready for that. I'm just spotlighting it as one of DOT's declared traffic calming tools that we might use if we were to expand the Washington Avenue traffic calming idea district-wide. But we're not saying we're gonna use it on Washington Avenue.
I think all we should do for Washington Avenue is just simplify it. Something that they cannot just go back and say, oh my God, we have to do all of this study. It's just a simple site, simple crosswalk and simple signs to slow down the traffic. I think if you present it that way, I don't see what the objection should be or could be. It's just a simple stop sign and yield to pedestrians and put my crosswalks here, end of story.
I do have a question.
You can do questions. I'm roughly.
You know what, I'm sorry, finish, go ahead. I'm the
No,
one.
that was it. That was it.
So, do we need DOT's cooperation
Oh, wait,
for
wait,
raised
one more thing.
crosswalks though?
One more thing. I forgot one more thing. We're also considering getting a letter drafted to bring in people around Washington Avenue, like Brooklyn Museum and Botanic Garden and other daycares and stuff like that, to also spotlight the issue and highlight how important it is to get those crosswalks and stop signs installed. That's it.
But
Free
should
December
we-
from the schools.
Yeah, they're included too. We're gonna get them as well.
Would we also need DOT's, cooperation for the raised crosswalks, cause that's capital construction, right? I mean, the whole reason, everyone in this district wants a speed bump, and nobody gets one, right? So are we gonna get there, is it gonna be the same story with the raised crosswalks, or?
Well, these requests come in a lot. If you look at the DOT requests map, you can see all the requests on the map of the city and
Right.
the statuses of all those requests. And they're very numerous, there's a lot of them. And I assume that if they come
Did you
in
get approved?
one by one, some get approved. But even so, I would assume that DOT was more likely to strike them down in this room if they come in one by one, as opposed to if a holistic plan is presented to them, either for a whole street or for a whole district. That might make more sense to actually follow, as opposed to one person submitting a request for one speed bump in one place.
The thing is too, is when it comes to things like speed bumps, stop signs, traffic lights, there's a lot of warrants that have to be satisfied. So in other words, there's a lot of criteria that have to be satisfied to get some of those things, which is part of the reason why you see so many speed bumps get rejected, because it's too close to a hydrant, too close to this, or there's a bus route or whatever else. And it's similar when it comes to stop signs and lights, because it's like to get a light or a stop sign sometimes, certain criteria that have to be satisfied. But that's what's great about what the transportation committee is doing is DOT has more tricks in the bag that we want them to start employing more often. The frustration was if they said no to a speed hump, that was the end of the conversation. We're saying no. Figure out what the issue is.
Right.
So if we're trying to slow it down, then give us options in terms of what slows it down, which is why I'm happy to hear that they were looking at things like raised crosswalks, and things of that nature as well. So that's fantastic. That's definitely
So
moving
you'll
ahead.
also look into what the criteria are for a raised crosswalk, if there are any.
There probably are, but my goal is to build out something and have DOT either provide feedback and input, tell us where we're wrong or we're right, and have it be a continuing thing that ends in something being built, as opposed to a yes or no one-liner answer.
Right. I did have one question as well. I know, and I know we keep bringing it up. What was the issue with putting a speed camera around just before where Montgomery and Washington is? What
It's
happened?
too close, there are two speed cameras right on Washington Avenue. So one is close to Sullivan and the other one is right by the McNeil Park. So they won't put one in the middle, because it's just too close to each other. There's gotta be a certain amount of mileage between, or distance between each camera, and these two are just too close.
Really?
Yeah. What we really actually requested was for that particular camera on Sullivan to move a little further into Montgomery,
Right.
so that the cars that leave that light down on Sullivan
It would make sense, yeah.
could be caught, but they just refuse to move it. They just don't want to move it.
So that's DOT saying no.
That's
They give you a
DOT saying no.
To give you a reason why?
Nope. We later found out that it's because of the distance of the cameras. It has to be a
Okay.
certain amount of distance.
Why didn't
Dante,
move it?
can we bring that back up with Bray? We should probably bring that back up, because it makes sense, if moving it, if we, I understand, okay, fine, they don't wanna spend, they don't wanna add a camera, but then maybe the positioning is what
The
helps.
position is what helps because there's a lot of trees that actually covers
Right.
the length of that camera in the summer. I don't even know. I don't know whose baby this was, but they put it in the wrong location, right in front of a tree. It's ridiculous. In the
So
summer.
Dante, yeah, let's bring that one back up.
Maybe we can drive it.
What's
Make sure they didn't get it.
What's the two locations, Sullivan and the other place?
Washington and Sullivan, and ideally it should be on Washington and Montgomery, closer to Montgomery.
That's what we asked for
But you said-
initially.
I'm sorry?
You said there were already two on the street, I just wanna make
There
sure.
are two on Washington, one by the McNear Park, which is by Clausen, and
Right,
the other one on
yes.
Sullivan.
One comment.
Yes.
One comment regarding their percentages, as part of the bike survey, that if you add Berman's survey to the percentages that we got, so the negatives become a lot larger.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Well, I mean, some people took a service. Some took both surveys. That's the first
Okay,
thing.
yeah, so
The
that's
second-
eliminates duplicates.
Yeah, right. But we know that we knew from the beginning that there is massive opposition to the DOT. That's why we toned it down. We didn't even think of expanding it. Like we knew that going in. Most of the committee opposes it too. To be honest, like it was just unworkable. And people who live on Kingston, like myself, who I grew up there, people who live on Kingston know what they're trying to put on the street just will not work. And I think, yeah, I mean, it's very clear. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions from the committee?
I have one thing, I wanna correct you on that. Carroll Street doesn't have a crosswalk on Washington Island, so it is two intersections. They're not
Carroll,
next to each other, but it is two. It's Montgomery has no crosswalk there, Crown does, but then Carroll doesn't.
How is the dead end street?
Carroll is
No,
a
it
dead end
is.
street, but that street is a dead end street, so most people don't really cross there. They don't cross over across Washington, they just go straight on the northbound side of Washington towards Eastern Parkway. They use mostly that. Now, when you cross that particular point, you're taking your life in your own hands because there is nothing there to protect you other than that crosswalk on the southbound side of the street. So mostly cars that are from the school would park across the street or in that vicinity. So they don't really have a crosswalk there. They don't need one there. There's no reason for one there.
I mean,
If we're
still-
talking about the
still-
same place, because
Yeah.
I know this place like the back of my hand.
Right, yeah. It still is dangerous for a person to cross there, if they decided to.
Well, there is a light. There is a light and a crosswalk right across Clausen. When you get to the corner of Washington and Clausen, there's a traffic light right there. The next traffic light is on Crown. So you either cross on Crown or you cross on Clausen, which is the best place if you actually want to get across across to the Botanical Garden on Washington. Instead of crossing in the middle, because you have no protection in the middle.
School's right there.
Okay.
Right, okay, so action items, do you have any action items that we voted on at the board?
Well, the resolution on the DOT safety plan was tabled last meeting, so it's still, it should come up in December. You should vote on that. It's generally a disapproval of the DOT plan, suggested changes and a request for a new plan to be submitted, updated plan, so I don't see it helping us waiting on that. We should get that out as soon as we can.
Were there any open questions that you know about, or everything's?
Open questions? Not many. I mean, I know about the biggest concerns were about the bike lane being next to schools and stuff like that and not being a safety issue. DOT seems to believe it's safe based on how they've analyzed things before. And we can give additional feedback later on when they bring another plan to us. But right now, there's no big open questions as far as I know.
Okay, so I'll probably recommend, we'll bring it back up to the table. I'll probably say, if anything, just say, brief presentation in a few minutes,
Yeah.
just to answer the open questions in terms of this is some of the feedback we received. I just wanna make sure everybody had that information, so that way hopefully the board has all that information, we can just go quicker to voting as opposed to having an extended conversation.
Yeah, that's fine.
So if you just front run that.
I just have one last question about that. I mean, DOT is trying to sell this package as a school safety measure. So I fail to see where the school safety measure is here, because it seems like everything is just about bike lane. So exactly how does that translate into school safety measure? What exactly are they doing for the schools to make it safer other than bike lanes? Because children can get hit by bikes too.
Okay. Well, the first thing I want to touch on is the fact that teachers asked for this. It's not an example of DOT reaching out, trying to dangle bike lanes in front of the neighborhood space. From what the commissioners told me, principals from within the Wingate campus reached out and asked them to narrow the street somehow and make it harder for drivers to speed. And the fact that they also spotted the fact that kids who are on bikes are having a hard time biking around there because of the traffic volume and the traffic speed. So DOT's response was, let's narrow the street, and what do we put on the side? A bike lane. So that it
Is that the best solution though? Is that the best solution? I mean, you can narrow the street if that's what the whole ultimate goal is, but kids get hit by bikes all the time. What is the safety measure? I'm just trying to wrap my head around that piece because
Well-
I don't see it.
Well, my other assumption, well, not assumption, but what you said is that also their studies of protected bike lanes show that they help pedestrians stay safe in addition to bikers. So in their mind, they're using a route configuration that has been proven to cause less deaths in places where you want less deaths, which are around schools.
Okay.
Wordplay. Okay, all right, so we have that one action item, so we'll bring that back, down. All right, do you have a report? Do you wanna give a report for education?
Right. I want to give a report for the social youth services and the education library. And it's on our careers day, scheduled for March 2025. We've worked on it. We've got all the paperwork. We've got the budget, so we want to put it in as early as possible. We want to have it on March 15. We're going to. Okay. Hold on. I know this. Our classes. Prospect High. I was thinking about Clever Barton. Sorry. Prospect High. Is for students between the age of 14 to 24. We're going to have 4 workshops, 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening, and so that everybody will get the opportunity. We're going to have some networking breakout, and we hope to end with a career fair. It's going to be from 10:30 to 5. That time encompasses opening and closing. So we will be there by 10:30. We hope the students arrive about 11, give us time to set up, finish it at 4, give us an hour to break down and to be out. How resources we will be looking at. We got tips on resumes, development, interview, best practices. We have some, hope to have some vendors booths for employees. We'll have a space for suggested book readings, because in this day and age, everybody wants not to be reading, so we're trying to bring at least some educational part back, and we'll have some takeaways for the kids. We're planning to advertise by everywhere possible. We're going to have an Eventbrite, Google Forms, Facebook. Our timeline, as for now, for December, we have located and hope to locate and secure the school permit. So Dante will be coming to you. By January, we'll be able to send out our donation letters, which is Vanessa. We come to you for some businesses. And we begin to open the registration, and then we begin to seek out the companies. I already look at an invite panel, so we know just by January, we hope to send all the invitations out for that. By February, we gather all the materials and any items to be purchased, and on March 15, 2025, our show is on the road. I must say that we've got some young, very young ladies on our committee now who work. It's like 14-page proposal down to budget, everything. So Dante, I'm leaving this copy with you because I cannot afford to print copies for everybody. We even got like the layout of who we want to be sending our letters to. So all of that for you, Dante, we will send you the list in the schools in our areas. Lady, she's working on it. All our templates, stuff like that. So we're happy for your QR code. Well, one other thing is that we talk about incentives for the children. So we will be looking at some possibility of some donations, maybe, we don't know, like tablet, stuff like that. And one of the things that we were looking at is that we would like to sort of like honor one of our young people in our district. So that would be one of the highlights of the evening. So we look for all the support CB9 to give us.
What's the criteria for the honorary?
Know what?
What is your criteria for the honorary?
Oh, we are working on that, but one of the things that we talk about a young business, a person with a business, not a academia award.
A young entrepreneur.
Yeah, young entrepreneur. I know, or a young person who works in community. I know there was a story we had of a young 17-year-old who was running a fridge. What do they call it?
Community fridge?
Yeah, meal fridge. Right, and he was working really hard. So that was one that inspired us to do something like that for our kids and not just hand out stuff of attendance.
And you are reaching out to private corporations as part of
That's in the proposal.
Well, yeah. So, yeah, we should approve that before we.
Yeah, so that's why I bring it before we
Okay.
reach out anything.
Dante?
Continue the meeting, this is my job.
So by January, even though there's some things that we've got, by January we would be hoping to, if there's things to be purchased, for us to vote on the money in January. But December we could vote the proposal to go forward. So that's what we're doing.
All right, so with that being said, so that's the one action item, we should vote on that as an exec, actually. All right, so this is for proposed career day. This is supposed to be on March 15th. Next year, it's gonna be at Prospect Heights High School. Looks like there's a number of activities, a number of workshops that we planned for the occasion. What was if you can just give us a quick summary, like how much money are we talking about?
We talked about the $1,500 budget, but as usual, we don't budget under the budget number. But there's a possibility that we would be still looking up for donations for.
Okay, no, I mean, as long as we, and that's fine, we can do that. We just wanna make sure that we're at least able to consider that with. All right, so
Yeah, but you also need to reach out to the council members to see if you can get any resources for that event.
They've already discussed that, but.
Because they have some funding.
Now, those kinds of solicitations, just make sure that we relay that back to the committee.
Yeah.
I want those conversations to go through Dante as
Right,
well,
that's why.
just because we just
Yes.
wanna make sure that we didn't hear, well, CB9, I gave $2,000 to the event.
I was like, yeah.
So we just wanna make sure we're able to track that.
So I just wanna make sure also we are reaching out to the, school children in other parts of the district.
Then you said other parts of the district with you.
Like, for example, like East Flatbush is pretty far away from Prospect Heights, but I just wanna
We
make
thought,
sure.
we were looking at this, all the districts in
Okay.
CB9.
Okay,
So we're not picking all schools in CB9, put together a list of all schools.
So now, when it comes to the honorees, I do want us to talk a little bit about that as well.
Yes.
Just because I always wanna be very careful in terms of making sure what the criteria are, who's judging, who's doing certain things, just so that way it's like, it looks like there's an impartial process that's there. So it doesn't look like, oh yeah, well, Fred gave his godson, whatever.
But if you don't
Why
find
didn't
a
you
person,
come as a
okay.
front row?
Okay. No, but I mean, as long as
Public
it's a
meeting.
conversation on it.
It's a public meeting, anybody can come in.
Okay, all right,
So that's a voting item for our next meeting.
we can vote on that now,
Basic
so,
proposal.
let me ask this, so the proposal's on the, that's been given by Youth Services and Education Library. Did you wanna put a motion on the floor to adopt this?
Yeah.
Okay, motion on the floor by Madam Secretary, do we have a second?
Yeah.
Okay, second by First Vice Chair. All right, I think we've had, any additional questions about the event? Okay, hearing none, can we approve this to go before the board by common consent?
Yes.
Okay, by common consent. Alright, so that's approved. Alright, okay, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Alright, I guess it might be me now. I have two items, in terms of one, housing. So, one development that I have to advise the committee is that, our housing chair, has resigned from the board. So, we wish her well and we thank her for all of her service. So right now, we are in the process of restructuring the housing committee. So the original intent was I was trying to have housing work very closely along with, land use in terms of meeting jointly and being able to do certain things. Right now, we're gonna dial back a little bit just so we can get them set up and established. So we scheduled a meeting for this month. Again, I think December is just a tough month, so we weren't able to be quorum. We didn't have it, but we intend to come back in January. I want to reinvigorate that committee and kind of set tone, and set some targets for them, and hopefully in terms of being able to revitalize the committee, just get some things going. One, we were talking about being able to look at the data for the district in terms of creating a district profile, in terms of what do we have and what do we need. I was very happy to hear that you were talking about even the idea of like things in the mix about affordability, about condominiums being home ownership, what kinds of opportunities are we asking for, are there, what kind of resources we should be asking to grow into the district for that as well. That's something that's sadly been lost in terms of, that's not something people talk about anymore, unfortunately, just because of the housing prices. Maybe that should be brought back as a concern. But those are the things that we're working with that. So right now, I served as temporary, as pro tem chair for that one. I'm going to see, I may ask one of the exec, maybe one of you, or I may sit for that meeting again. But that's part of the goal in terms of, we want to revitalize that committee, because we want to make sure that there's a vibrant conversation happening around housing, because that is really one of the issues that is almost the top of the list every year for us as well. Okay,
We
so,
cannot handle every issue.
I'm sorry?
We cannot handle everything on.
And every issue is not land use, it's like, it's like, well, it's related to building, so it has to be land use, no, it's not. So definitely we want to make sure we do that, and we'll see what happens in terms of, I still think there's some conversations that should happen jointly.
Yeah.
And we'll see how that works and how that works out, but we want to make sure, I think, it's important to have a good, strong housing committee. So we'll make sure we do what we can to support that as well. All right, so the second one I had, second report I had is for public safety. So public safety, we met last week. We have one action item. It's an SLA application for 887 Nostrand, 887 Nost. It's on Nostrand Avenue on the corner of Crown Street. Yeah, on the corner of Crown Street. Sorry? It's a full liquor license that they're requesting. Sorry? 887 Nost.
Is that
Yes.
where the,
No, that was the address, I'm sorry.
That's
The
where,
juice facility
yeah,
was.
that's where Lenby used to be.
Exactly.
right, okay, and I do have something I wanna talk about pertaining to the, qualifications for, the liquor license, applications.
Hold on. So let me finish this, and then definitely we'll take a
You
question.
said Nostrand and
Crown.
So that application was heard, the applicant came and they spoke with us. So they originally requested a 4 AM close time. The committee voted to approve the application with the condition that they close by 2 AM, because I think the board is for the most part been consistent with a 2 AM closing time for most of the applications. So we said that, that's the condition that we're doing. So that's what's being brought before the executive to move before the board.
Alright,
I'm sorry.
yeah, information, so by the time they get to the board, it will be changed to 2 AM.
The vote for the board, that'll be for the board, is to approve with the stipulation that it's 2 AM close.
Okay, because every time you come before, we waste a lot of time, get it back
No.
to 2.
That's the vote on the
So come
floor.
on the,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
Sure, you can have a
Yeah,
license, but
yes.
you close at 2.
Yeah,
Right.
people
That's-
get
that's-
confused that the
Right, so
the
the
license is
the
saying
committee
4,
should bring that.
we are
No,
voting
the
to that.
application says 4.
Right.
And they have the right to say 4 because legally that is the time that they are permitted to stay by law.
Oh,
But if it comes before the board has the opportunity and the
Right.
right to say, well, listen, we're
We
not
prefer
against
2.
it for 2 AM.
Yeah.
Or our stipulation is, we approve it only if it's 2
It
AM.
happens every time. People get
Yeah,
confused and say it should say 2, but no, it shouldn't. It's 4. We're saying 2.
We're saying
We're
2.
saying two.
That is the board's
I think-
position, saying 2. Exactly. Right. So that's that, and hold on, just one last piece and then we'll go ahead, and we'll take your question, I know you have a question as well. And then secondly, it goes to the question of criteria for SLA applications, because I know that we've
Yeah.
done this in the past where it's like, you know, we have the same conversation about if it's 2 AM or if it should be this, or what kinds of criteria we should be judging these applications. So one of the things that public safety is going to be doing is over the next couple of months, we are going to be having conversations about perhaps creating a board-wide set of criteria where it's like, you know what, automatically we say it's 2 AM or whatever the time is the board is comfortable with, but as long as we're consistent. But we just wanna make sure we're consistent with it, so that's not a conversation. And any applicant who comes understands that's the board's position automatically. We can be nuanced with that as well. So while we say that, I mean, if you wanna make conversations around, if it's on a main corridor, maybe it's appropriate to do something different. Or depending on density, if there are other conversations. So those are all things that we can discuss that we'll be discussing as a committee. And absolutely inviting the exec and the board to come as well to participate in that. But that's ultimately what we're trying to work towards in terms of having criteria, in terms of, people have expectations that, you know, they know what they're getting when they come here. And it's not an extended conversation, and they know what we are okay with and what we're not. So that'll be a conversation we're having with that. But again, so 887 Nostrand, that's the one action item that we have for that. And I'm sorry, Debbie, I'll take your question. Debbie, go ahead, I know you had a question.
So, in terms of the whole criteria for, you know, applicants that's coming to the board for, you know, license and things, I think we have to be consistent in the things that, as committee members, what we're asking one individual as opposed to another for. If you're asking one for petitions, then all of them should be asked for petitions. We can't, you know, ask Jack for petitions for a space and then ask someone that definitely doesn't ask the other person for that. So if that's what one of the criteria is, it should be for all the applicants.
And that's what it is. So whatever the number is, should be the number for everyone. It should be the number for everyone, and, you know, so it's just a matter of we need to discuss what is the number that we feel comfortable with. You know, we don't wanna say we'll get 10 people on a signature, but I think it's unfair to say we'll get 500 people in a 3-block radius or something like that. That might be something that's a little bit more
Right.
numerous. We just wanna be consistent with it. Yes, go ahead.
Question, where does this petition thing come from?
Like I
Because
said, that's my
the
question.
the SLA law doesn't really call for petitions. What they ask you to look at is the 500-foot rule. And that's looking at how many liquor licenses of the same type are within a 500-foot radius, and if there's more than 3, then you go to a public hearing on the merits or whatever, which is what we essentially do when we raise this in general board. But the petition thing is really nowhere there. I mean, I can sort of understand asking people who live in the building above it if they're okay with it and okay with the hours.
Right.
But to just generally ask like a bunch of people in the neighborhood, are you okay with the bar or not? I mean, like, you know, most people are just gonna be like, whatever, you know, like, there's not that many people that are just, you know, like prohibitionists, and likewise, you know, like, the majority of those people aren't gonna drink at that bar. So, like, I kind of, like, it's a thing for us, but I don't think every board does it, and I don't know where this.
I mean, there's a variety of ways that boards tackle it, so I mean, absolutely. And I think it's a fair question to ask in terms of, do we keep that, and if we do keep it, what is the criteria for that? So perhaps, yeah, I mean, I think it's probably appropriate to say, listen, if you're gonna be the bottom floor of a building, you know, I think the residents probably should know that you're coming.
Yeah.
To the extent that we say, okay, well, listen, we wanna see if there's more community support or opposition, that's a conversation we should have.
I mean, like, what I'd almost prefer to see is a notice posted in that building that says, we will have a hearing, these are the hours.
And that is something we are looking at going towards. That is something we are, and I think it's something we might have even included as part of the cannabis applications.
Right.
Where we're requiring posting of signage, and I know I've seen other community boards do that as well, but there's signage posted saying, by the way, there's an application for this location, if you want to come and testify, this is the board meeting for this. So that's one of the things we're looking
We're applying.
By the way, that would work very well if we had a digital way to talk about that stuff and just tell people. Yeah, might work out.
at. Volunteer?
I mean, I already did most of that.
I know.
Yeah.
No, and absolutely, that's what we're looking at, that's what we're trying to go towards. All right, so I'll see second vice chair first, and then I'll see your husband.
Are schools, in this, kind of parameter of where you have the, liquor or bars are located? You know what I mean, in the parameters?
Medgar's across the street.
I'm sorry?
Isn't Medgar's across the street? I mean, the high school?
Okay, but is that, you know,
Yeah,
part of the, acceptance?
That's part of the criteria where it's like there's and I always confuse it, there's a 500-foot rule where I think you can't be within a certain distance between, that confuses it. There are certain distances you can't be, close to either schools, places of worship,
Okay.
and I think maybe there's one or two other things as well.
The 200-foot rule is a hard rule that if you can't be with a full liquor license, you can't locate within 200 feet of a school or a house of worship. But it's also like same side of the street.
And that's,
Yeah.
that is part of that conversation as well.
Okay.
Like they measure straight from on the street that you're
Right, on
on.
that side, yeah, you can be on that side, fight
The
you.
be across.
500-foot rule is not a hard rule, it just triggers a public hearing on the merits.
And I believe that's if you're within 500 feet of a certain number of other.
3, right?
No, other place.
Yeah, other
Or
license
other
places.
licenses of the same type.
Of this
Right. And that's to prevent clustering where it's like there's 5 bars on a block.
Right.
5 bars selling the same license.
Like same site.
Same menu.
Same site.
Same license, yeah.
Exactly. All right, so, but all to say that is a conversation that is happening, and again, more than welcome to please, because we wanna make sure that this is something that should be discussed, we wanna make sure we're consistent, we wanna make sure that, we understand, it's like, do people have a right to have a business? Sure. Does that mean all of a sudden we become party central for Central Brooklyn? Not necessarily. But we wanna be fair and have set expectations in terms of what we're looking for in the district.
Absolutely.
All right. I'm sorry, Hector, I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
Curious about, so what do you anticipate to be the agenda for the housing committee? Because there's a lot of issues on housing in this district, especially with the asylum seekers and what's happening on the other side of the district. I know that's not our community board, but it's spilling over into this one. So we have to have a robust housing agenda to be able to accommodate that, because I don't see it.
There's layers to that as well, in terms of.
They are, I know.
Yeah.
It is not just for our community board to deal with, but we have to have some sort of plan on how to deal with it. Because the city is not going to get involved in it, given everything that's happening in the city. It's something that we have to be able to control in our district.
And the thing is, I'm not sure if it's housing or if it's social services, because usually I think that's where that comes in. But you know what, rather than give you bad scoop, it's a conversation, so I mean, absolutely, look to see where that conversation makes sense. So absolutely. No, thank you for that.
Just a one comment on this, on the SLAs. I think personally, it's kind of hard for a business person to present their application to the committee. And the committee brings the application with this time, and then the general board comes and say, no, we're not voting for that, send it back. That's a waste of our time. That's a waste. So you have to have something in place where when the committee works on it and it comes to us, all of those things are in place. For a couple of years, I've been hearing this little group of people, well, if the committee didn't do their work, we would not have to do this. And we hear at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and people putting this out. So you gotta look at that part, that hour, the hourly time. You just said that, correct me if I interpret you wrong, that we could talk about the 2 a.m., but then maybe if it goes to the SLA direct, they would get the 4 a.m. Am I wrong?
I'm not gonna say it can't happen. I won't say it can't happen. But I think the SLA is usually pretty deferential as well, in terms of, and here's the thing, the whole idea is, we talk to the applicant and say, we're voting for you for 2 a.m. If you don't want 2 a.m., I think they can go, but that's
So-
something that doesn't usually fly.
Okay, good. So if I tell the applicant, I'm voting for you for 2 a.m., why is it coming to the general board at 4 a.m. for us now to have a conversation for those
No,
extra
and that's the
2
thing, it
hours?
shouldn't be a conversation, because the
Why
resolution.
can it not be changed at the committee when it comes to us? We just voting
Well,
for
here's
it
the thing,
because
it's
a
not a
committee.
matter of redoing the paperwork, it's a matter of the board's position on their application is, we are fine with X, Y, and Z, except for that time is what we're voting against and saying, no, it's 2 a.m.
But the committee people is members of the board too, and they know that when it comes to us, you are one place as a committee making one decision,
Right.
and then you come with same people
But
on the
wasn't-
board now making another decision.
And-
Wasn't the applicant supposed to make some adjustments or
Yes,
something?
because that's
Right,
what
no,
happened.
no, no, and this is
last
what I'm
time.
saying.
Yes.
But this is what I'm saying,
So
those
there was some
adjustments don't,
miscommunication.
there's a miscommunication.
There is.
No, the last time she said that she made her the adjustment, Fiona
Right.
said she
She
made the
did,
adjustment.
yes.
And
Right,
it's
but there
still-
was still
Right.
something
And it was,
going on
and,
there.
and nobody still vote for it, we still send it back
Yeah.
to them, right?
I think it went to the board office, if I'm
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, oh yeah, the applicant
So I
provided
don't know
everything
whether
that
the
the committee requested.
miscommunication was
It
between
was
the
just
committee
Board
and the
members
board
choosing to
office.
send an application back.
Right.
That's
I
where
think
we're at,
where-
that's where we're at.
I think that's
The
where it
applicant
is.
provided
That's what-
everything to the board office
Yeah.
ahead of time,
Yes.
we have board members
That's
who
what
chose to
So
send
that's
it back.
where, yeah,
What
so
So why
that's-
are they allowed to send it back
Back.
after all this
Yes.
time?
And the same people who bring it, vote against to send it back to
So
themselves.
wait a minute, so hold on, so Fiona's, what was it, so what's the status with Fiona? So they are,
They're good to go, yeah.
okay. Alright,
Yeah.
so thank you, when we get to the agenda setting portion of that, so let's make sure we
It has to
add
go
them, so
back.
that's it.
Yeah, I got it.
I mean,
Okay.
we're in any case of renewal,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
So it's sort
Okay.
of just.
I mean, if it was two different people that it was coming to, I wouldn't mind,
Right.
but it's coming to the same people, at the committee
Okay.
and on the board.
No, okay, alright, so no, we'll make sure we bring it back, we'll bring it back and we'll make sure that that's explained.
And that's a good point, it was a renewal, like,
Right.
it was already in business, with no problems, provided the information that the committee wanted,
Yes,
it, you know,
they did.
Okay.
No police,
I
and asked for more.
I think, I mean, I can see two things happening. I think perhaps when the committee approves or, makes their recommendation, it should be in writing to accompany the application from the business.
It does.
Yes.
If you just see 4 a.m., I
Yeah.
can see how some
It does.
folks are confused.
Right.
You should have maybe
Or
like
it
a,
should be
maybe like
in
a
their
little,
minutes, you
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
that's how you
That's it.
track things.
or at least there was a little recommendation, like a one paragraph thing saying
Yes.
we approve this
Something,
for 2
yeah.
a.m. instead of 4.
right.
Because as much as I think, like the board can just say 2 a.m. and just be done with it.
Yeah.
I think there is something causing the confusion. It's just the fact that there isn't anything on paper saying, the time that's actually being set. People are reading and they're seeing 4 and they're confused.
Right.
You're right.
It should be easy fix.
I understand what you're saying. I
That could
understand,
work.
that makes sense.
Yes, that
So-
could work.
If people read the minutes,
Right.
they would see the answer.
Right.
There you go.
Okay.
Yes.
But I mean,
But like every time a member or a member of the public doesn't want to read X, that doesn't mean Dante and the staff comes up with new way to try to communicate with them. Like, we represent 170,000 people, you know what I'm saying? Like, information comes in, we break it down, make it digestible. Like, at the end of the day, it's their responsibility to look at the information. They filled out the application to be here, which is more extensive than it's ever been to be on the community board. So like, we're adults, they chose to be here, read the information, you don't wanna read it,
I agree.
there it is, that's where we're at.
I agree. I'm just saying.
Okay, well, here's the thing, so I definitely wanna make sure we pick up the pace, cause I know that I went behind to the time.
Okay.
Alright, so 887 Nostrand is going to be one of the applications, plus Fiona's, the other
Yes,
action.
yes.
Okay, so that's all I had, the other pieces were for information, but absolutely, please make sure you stay tuned about the conversations about the criteria for selling applications. So those are the two committees that I had, were there any other committees, did I miss anybody? Everybody went?
Well, they're not here, so
No, but not here?
senior,
Oh, no, he didn't mean it, Almer didn't mean
Okay, alright, so I think we're done with that. So, we're gonna go on to next item, which will be,
Chairman's report.
no, before I get to that point, you have, quick items?
Yeah, not too much, so, just make fine month. Alright, so DOT has an opportunity to expand its network of curbside electric vehicle chargers through a federal charging and fueling infrastructure grant that they recently received. Since receiving this grant, DOT has identified potential locations for new charging implementation, advanced equity support TLC drivers, serve dense areas with little charging access and meet feasibility and layout requirements. Next year, 2025, DOT will be commencing community engagement to solicit feedback on these proposed locations and seek suggestions on additional sites for consideration. Feedback will be collected concurrently with additional feasibility analysis. So they're gonna run that concurrent. I did create a flyer, so we're gonna get this out to everyone. Right now, I'm thinking doing a survey. They don't have like any deadline, so we're just gonna blast it out, leave it open, let people comment on it. And then, you know, if we figure out when they actually plan to officially launch that community engagement, and we can kind of restructure at that time. But that's coming up, so I just wanted to note that. Also, last month, I had mentioned that DOT is in the process of installing loading zones in the district. They're required to report on this progress toward the implementation of these loading zones and publicly post these locations. The loading zones that are being proposed in this district are at 41 Clarkson Avenue, 35 Crown Street, and 806 Midwood Street. To provide comments on DOT's portal, I think it was up until maybe the 13th, but I just checked right before this meeting and you could still submit comments. So if you know anyone who still wants to comment, they can still do that at this time.
Where on Crown Street is this supposed to be?
35 Crown Street. So Crown Street between Franklin and Washington.
Franklin.
Do we know how they chose these sites?
And they never tell us that.
Wait.
Yeah.
Crown Street between Franklin and Washington. I'm trying to picture that.
So it's on Crown.
So it's
It's gonna be on Crown. The address that they gave again, the approximate address is 35 Crown, so.
So, let me ask you this. Are they looking at the, new building that was constructed there
What do you mean?
on Crown?
That's weird. 35 Crown is this building.
Right.
Yeah, that's a new
Right.
building, right?
No.
No, that is, that's condominium, a condominium, so
Yeah.
they must have used that number, but you have a new building
Oh.
right over
That.
there.
Oh,
Right,
that
and it's in
is,
front of,
yeah, that is.
Yeah.
Tivoli
So
Towers.
35 Crown Street, yeah. I mean, there's a fire hydrant right in front of this building, so they're
Yes.
probably going to try to figure that situation out. But, yeah,
In front of the condominiums, that's the building is a condo.
well, you know, people in condos need packages dropped off too.
I understood, but I mean, the new constructed building.
54.
Yes,
Yeah.
that holds almost 600 apartments. Wouldn't they be best set up
Yeah.
for the loading? Cause it's.
They should have their own bay.
Hold on.
Yeah,
Is this,
exactly.
hold on,
Right.
we said,
Maybe
hold
the
on.
buildings should have their own.
Is this for EV charging or are we
Yes.
talking about something different?
No,
No, it's
no,
not.
this is not EV charging, this is different. This is the loading zone.
Oh, loading zone.
Yeah.
Oh, those
Yeah,
are the loading
this
zones.
was- Yeah,
Okay, all right.
yeah.
So let me ask you this question, because I was reading all about this, but I just can't picture. So the loading zone is gonna take how much space is it gonna take?
No, I don't.
Because you know, in any given
Parking spot.
area, in any given day, you have 10 trucks delivering in one area. I know, I can
Yeah.
see this every day. So how is that proposal gonna work? Because if you have a loading zone, you're either gonna have to have the entire block to accommodate all these trucks, or
Yeah, no parking.
and then there's
they're
no
gonna take
parking
their
at all.
spots out.
I don't see it, because
Yeah.
right on Washington, we have a no standing zone designed specifically for the bodega on the corner. But guess what? The garden also receives loading and unloading trucks all day long.
Correct.
Not to mention all the other deliveries, FedEx, UPS, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So they take up the whole area, backup traffic, you name it. So this has to be really flushed out properly, because I don't see how that's gonna work on
If
35
I can
Friday.
ask this question, what time is the loading zone operated? This is not a 24-hour zone, is it?
Loading zone,
They are, most
Yeah.
of them are.
And then
Yeah.
what, they just drop something off at
yeah,
what?
loading
Yeah.
On
zones
the
are,
sidewalk?
so loading zones can be for package delivery, it could be for Uber drop off.
Right.
So literally, you pull into the spot, I don't know if I'm Amazon, I'm dropping off packages, but I'm not causing traffic backup because I'm out of the lane, so traffic can continue on, drop off packages, and when I'm done, I whip out of the spot.
And it makes
That's
sense, to me, it makes sense during certain hours of the day, but I don't think that should be a 24, okay, well, maybe that's a.
Well,
right.
yeah.
I mean, I get my
You're
packages
in the course
at
of the
night.
day and night.
You do?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I get my
yeah.
packages at night. Typically,
Jersey.
every time I order anything, I get it around 8.
And not only
Yeah,
that,
in New
but
Jersey, you can get a 3 o'clock in the morning if you order at 12.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes,
Not only
my
that,
daughter,
but-
she ordered at 12,
but
I'll be there at
this-
1 o'clock.
the sign itself is loading and unloading, no standing, no stopping. So that spot is open 24 hours for that purpose.
But
Right.
that's the 24 hours though.
Regarding,
Yeah, but
regarding,
It's a free spot.
It's really.
regarding 35 Crown, you're saying there's a fire hydrant right in front of the building.
Yeah.
A fire hydrant is technically a loading zone anyway.
Cause you can park up to 30.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right.
You can't park.
Okay,
but
all
not-
right, well, I'm sorry, but you know, let's let the district manager finish his report, go ahead,
Wait,
continue on.
Sorry.
Don't have another question about that.
Well, Joe, hold on, before we, if we can, because I want to make sure he finishes, and then we'll ask questions. But,
All right. Next up, the Department of Sanitation is proposing to amend its rules relating to infrequent generators of commercial waste to allow certain businesses to share containers, as well as to mandate waste surveys for private carters who utilize a flat billing method. DSNY will hold a public hearing on this proposed rule. This public hearing will take place via Microsoft Teams, 10 a.m. on January 6th of 2025. If you wish to provide written comments, you can email nycrules@dsny.nyc.gov. The Department of Housing Preservation and Development proposes to amend Chapter 50 of Title 28 of the Rules of the City of New York to implement the prevailing wage requirements for building service employees for the Affordable Neighborhoods for New Yorkers Tax Incentive Benefit Program and for the Affordable Housing from Commercial Conversion Tax Incentive Benefits Program, both established by the New York State Legislature earlier this year. HPD will hold that public hearing on Friday, January 10th from 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Via WebEx. If you wish to email written comments, you can email those to rules@hpd.nyc.gov. And then just a couple administrative things. The 2025 Brooklyn Community Board application is live. So if you know anyone who's interested in applying to be on community boards, definitely direct them to apply. The application is located on our website. If you go to the news section, the news tab, you can fill it out online. They have an online link, or you can download the paper application and then submit it via mail to Borough Hall. We still have leaf bags, so if you want some, please take. And if you know of anyone who may want them, just have them reach out to the board office because we still have them. And then just a couple of administrative, I guess more administrative. We do have a couple of like private driveways in our district. We received a complaint about Miami Court. So if you happen to know anyone there, have them reach out to the board office. But apparently there's a vehicle that has not moved from the location in quite some time, and now trash has basically built up on this street. And it's a private street, so DSNY can't service it. So it's kind of a sticky situation. So that, and then we will be having an additional event with National Grid. So we get National Grid to basically come out. So if you know anyone who has issues with their bill, or they might be eligible for some of the incentive programs, we'll have that in the e-blast, but definitely have them look out for that. We'll be doing that sometime in January here at the board office. All right.
can I just ask you quickly about DSNY? What exactly is going on with those folks? They're not cleaning the street on Washington Avenue.
On Washington. All right. Like
We have a pile-
frequently, not
We have a pileup of dead leaves all along Washington Avenue that the sanitation truck has not made an effort to clean. Number one. Number two, there has been no sanitation enforcement carried out on Washington Avenue. So cars aren't moving, so sanitation trucks either go around or don't come down at all.
cars aren't moving.
All
Much
have
of
this problem
PLG.
cars. We
Yes,
all have
yes.
this.
Yeah.
So I just want-
Cars
okay.
aren't moving. And so we have this
tickets.
pileup of tree leaves It's, I mean, you're walking on top of mountains of leaves when you park your car.
Like, no one's
Alright.
even moving at all.
No,
No
they're
one
not
is
moving
moving.
anymore.
It's cool.
No.
So I'm just curious. What do we expect DSNY to do if no one's moving their car?
We expect them to actually enforce the traffic.
Like, if people start
The alternate
ticketing, then
traffic
people will
rules.
move their cars.
But usually the supervisors are driving around.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I haven't seen them,
Me
so
I haven't
neither.
seen
I
it.
don't.
And I haven't seen,
They would drive around,
the,
look at your garbage, you get a ticket, but then let your car.
Yeah,
One of my
exactly.
neighbors had put cameras and scanners on the
Weeks
super
ago.
trucks so
Yeah.
that they can actually like ticket
There's
as
like
they
a
go
little
through.
battle going on, I think, between one side of the street and the other side of the street. This is by the school.
Yeah,
This is
okay.
on the school side. If you notice, the school side is a mess and this is clean. I think the supers on the other side of the street are blowing everything
Oh.
back
That
to the
happens
street.
too.
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
so
but
there's
you're
a battle
still
going
talking-
on.
That's very
This was a
believable.
mountain
That's
to
very
really
Are you talking about the school down your block?
Yes.
Yes.
Cause I was going in that direction last
Oh, yeah.
week
That is right.
and there was a guy, I don't know if he was part of the park, but he had a blower and he was blowing it
Across the
in
street.
the street.
So,
There-
Yeah.
There's
And
a
I'm like,
big
what's the
back
point
and
of blowing it in the street? Pick it up.
Yeah.
so Dante, so two
And
things that
back
we
it up.
expect. We expect the sanitation department to enforce the alternate side of the street by putting those stickers on people's windows. And the second thing, the traffic enforcement people have to also go around and give them tickets to move their cars, just force them to move their car.
But they need to coordinate with the trucks so
Yeah.
that
They do, they do.
We can do that,
I'm
yeah.
tired of sitting in my car and just watching them go by
Okay,
and don't clean the street.
alright.
Cause you're like, is street cleaning happening? Like, I'm
Yes.
confused, there's only some people who've moved.
Well,
Yeah.
and then to top that is like anytime we've ever asked about them looking at street cleaning rules, they say, well, your streets are too dirty.
Right.
Because they'll tell us that our cleanliness rating is not high enough. Like, I think we have to get over 90%.
Yeah, it's like 95, something.
But
Yeah, you have
that
to get like
said,
90 or
I
95%.
have to report that the reason a lot of people want to reduce the number of ASP days is because they don't like to move their cars, and they don't like to move their cars because they're afraid of losing their parking
Parking,
spot.
right.
Because
Yeah.
there's just not enough parking in the district
Yeah.
at
But,
all.
but you know what, in regards to that, and they need to make that a rule, right? If we're gonna say we're only cleaning the street once a week, or twice a week, well, not twice a week, but once a week or once a month, whatever it is, then we need to have them stick to that
Yeah.
and move the cars. That's it. And then they don't have to move, they can just get somebody to move their cars or something, and get back their space, but we have mountains of leaves on the street.
I mean,
On
it's a hygiene
outside,
issue. It's a hygiene issue. It's like we want the
it's
street clean.
ridiculous, it's gotten to the point
That's
where
what
you
the
just
barrier
cannot
is.
have that.
Probably everything.
What street?
This is Sterling Street
Sterling, okay.
between Nostrand and New York.
And to be honest, for the amount, like the $40 ticket or whatever that people get for
It's a
not
little
moving their cars,
So it's
a lot of
everybody.
people will take that once a month instead of paying $300 for a parking spot in a
Possibility.
garage.
But there
So
are no
you should-
parking garages, that's the problem. There's like no
There's none.
parking.
There's no
I've
parking.
gotten to the
Don't
point,
wanna
I've,
build
no,
it.
I've gotten to the point on days when I work from home that I've driven around the block, around the block so much, I just park on Nostrand and pay for 4 hours or 2 hours, come upstairs, do my work, go back downstairs, move it to the other side of the street and pay for another 2 hours, because there's no parking. It doesn't make sense for me, and I have no problem walking, further to park my car, but if there's no parking, and I'm double parking sometimes, setting the alarm, it's a mess. If there was enough parking, it is frustrating, because I'm working from home and I'm like, okay, let me go downstairs, and it's like you're telling your boss, okay, yeah, I'm working from home, but I have to move my car, wink, wink, like, do they really believe you after a while? Luckily, I have
Yeah.
a boss who's pretty reasonable, she knows I'm not gonna lie, but it's like, to pay for parking in my own neighborhood, when it's supposed to be for people who are coming into the neighborhood to do business, it's not fair to the businesses, because now the businesses don't get their customers.
Well, the meter guy doesn't even go down Flatbush, so if you wanna park on Flatbush, you can park there all day and you won't even-
That's 6/10 of a mile
I
away
know.
from where I am, which is,
But who's counting? Yeah.
no, I used to park actually on Flatbush in the mornings before I got the idea that, okay, the sweet spot is between 6:30 AM and 7:30 AM where you could actually move your car. But now you're talking about waking up extra early, which I'll do, but there are other people who don't have that luxury to do that. That's,
Oh, sorry, Don, go ahead.
I'm finished. Yeah, I was finished.
Okay.
I heard that.
All right, are there any other questions for Dante?
Yeah, so, I understand the loading zone expansion was part of like they wanted to get to X number of spots, and it was like 5,000 or something
Some number there.
through 2025. So what is the running total right now? I mean, how many more of these are we gonna get?
I don't have the number on my head, but I can definitely
mandated
pull
to
it.
just keep adding these every year?
Yeah, they do have to start.
Because
I
that
think
basically
this is
means
the.
adding loading zone
No, this
spots
is the
every
last
year means we're gonna be continuously losing parking spots.
Yeah.
People
They're
need to
mandated to
understand that.
remove it.
So.
They're mandated to remove parking spots.
Right, yeah, so also it says provided that at least 500 new loading zones are created citywide annually through 2024. So this will be,
This is the last year.
this will be the last
The
year.
last-
Okay.
Oh, okay.
This will be the last,
Okay.
that's what it says, through
And so what are,
2024. So,
okay, so this is it. Okay.
yeah, this is it.
The second thing with
Unless
respect
someone
to the
is allowed,
EV
yeah.
charging,
Unless they-
are any of those sites in our district?
Yes, did I not, okay, yes, so sorry, let me actually say that, that's a good point. All right, yes, so for the EV charging expansion, the proposed locations in our district are as follows. President Street, they don't have a address like the other. President Street between Utica and Rochester. Schenectady between President and Union Street. Schenectady between Union Street and Eastern Parkway.
Why?
What?
I don't work for the agency, I don't know, this is what was sent to me, but it's my job to report.
If you could, okay, if you could get some clarity in terms of why are they picking these spots? Like, what's the criteria?
It's random.
Well, I
They're-
assume-
they're-
But how do
it's
they
all
know about
random.
picking
They
selected
don't have
these
any
spots?
studies done on
It's not random.
Right, which is why.
From what I understand, a lot of these spots are aimed at car-heavy areas, so they wouldn't typically think about putting these in places where you have chargers already. So they wouldn't put these near Brooklyn Museum because they already have chargers in the backyard, in the parking lot. They aim for car-heavy parts of a district where you'll have more car ownership, thinking that it would coincide with EV ownership as well, but that isn't always the case because I believe most of the EV ownership here is on the west side of the district, closer to the Brooklyn Museum. Even though the car there is lower than it is on
So
the
they also
Utica
said
side.
it was aimed at TLC drivers. Do we have a sense of where those drivers are located in
No
our
clue. I don't.
district?
No.
Because I will say that, a lot of commercial vehicles use Flatbush Avenue between Grand Army Plaza and Empire Boulevard for parking.
Oh, yeah, for
So
overnight parking, yeah.
Yeah.
that's a potential spot if we're gonna see a lot of EV conversions by commercial vehicles. That's a potential possibility. But the other thing is, people should keep in mind that, you actually can request, commercial parking locations, like for example, the Western Beach parking lot or the hospital parking lots. They can request, a Tesla superchargers for free, it's free to them. They only, and then they split the electricity fees with Tesla. Tesla will put in the infrastructure. And I think those are now open to other types of EVs as well. So there's other ways to get chargers.
But Western Beach would have to do it.
They would have to request it, yeah, and agree, they probably have to agree to maintain it, whatever conditions,
I mean, if there's any incentives,
Yeah. There must be.
there has to be
Otherwise, nobody
incentives for
would
them
do
to
it.
do it, so like,
Well, the incentive is they get more customers, right? Like anybody
Yeah.
who needs to charge goes
They
and
have to
parks
sit
there.
there.
And they sit there for a half hour, and while you're sitting there, you're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go get my whatever I need
Yeah.
to get. And
maybe that's the play.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
Okay.
It seems like the first one's next to Lincoln Terrace Park. I'm picturing it in my head, so that's probably why they did that, but
Yeah, I got space.
yeah, but that's a good idea, commercial location.
All right.
Would you be part of that though?
Okay.
I
Worth the inquiry. It's worth the inquiry.
Yeah.
Figure it out, you know.
What did you say?
I'm asking if DOT would be part of that commercial Tesla process, because it kind of looks like we're cutting DOT out of it and trying to get two other folks to put charges in, which might not make
But I
it.
don't, yeah.
Yeah, they
I
might
get
not
it.
want to just abandon their own plan for
Yeah.
some other solution.
I get it.
I mean, public charging spots, which obviously have the potential to be the cheapest, DOT and Con Ed would still have to be, I mean, Con Ed has to be involved in all these conversations, no matter
It is,
what.
yeah.
But DOT can still be involved in public street charging spots, like, you know, the spots that are, people don't, I mean, people don't wanna lose street parking no matter what. So, like, but spots that are already metered spots, they might not care as much.
For sure.
What about no loading zone?
Interesting.
Well, that might be,
Right.
that might
That
not
would be
work
a
because
problem.
it might take too much time to
long,
recharge.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I like the way you're thinking.
Yeah, me too.
Found some spots.
2 pots at one,
Right.
one stone.
Okay, all right.
25 cents a mile, so.
Okay, short one today. All right, first of all, I wanna thank everyone for all your work and you know, just keeping the big CB9 machine rolling last month. As I had surgery, so I just wanna thank everybody for keeping it going. Thank to the leadership team. Okay, attendance. So one of the things that I was talking with the district manager, one of the things that I need to make sure that we're doing is, please, we've asked the district office to send meeting invites, because I know that was a big thing for a while, because when they sent the emails, it's easy to see the email and you forget to put it on your calendar. They send the calendar invites, please make sure, one, you're saving them onto your calendars, but two, also respond to the calendar invites, because this way, the office and the leadership gets an idea in terms of who's showing up for meetings. So just as that courtesy, just let us know, you know, you received it, it's acknowledged, we know it's done. And it also helps us keep track in terms of who's getting what communications, and if you're not getting communications, into that, to make sure it's being on time. As the district manager said, so application process has begun. So please make sure, please make sure to check that you've got an email from Borough Hall saying that you are up for reappointment. If you think you might be, or if you have a question, please contact Borough Hall to confirm if you are up for reappointment. We want to make sure that, hopefully you'll be able to come back, but make sure you have to submit that appointment. I believe the deadline is February
14.
14th?
Yeah.
February 14th, so make sure you check.
Valentine's Day.
Yep, so make sure you check,
So romantic.
All right, couple of last items. So again, housing, we already mentioned, so we're in the process of revitalizing that committee. So I'll be, I may be asking members of the executive, to pinch hit if, for the next scheduled meeting. But absolutely ideas about what we should be doing, conversations that we should be having, so definitely we'll take that as well. Had a conversation with the executive secretary. So one of the things we are going to be looking to do is making sure that the minutes are being, that we're better with minutes as well. So for all committees, what I'm asking is for you to make sure that it is part of your agendas where you approve the minutes from the month before. Because that way, one, it makes all the membership look at the committees and, the what was done, and it refreshes and keeps everybody there. But it also, once you vote on that, that becomes the official record. So what we're gonna see how that works operationally is, our minutes are going to be posted on the board website. They'll be a month behind, because everything else will be in draft until your committee votes on the next one. But we just wanna make sure that this is a process that's going on forward, where you're looking at what you did the month before, you'll approve those. Once those are approved, whatever changes have to happen, then they're gonna go live and they'll exist on the website.
So we should approve them at the beginning of the meeting?
Beginning of
Okay.
Okay, so we'll make sure that'll be a part of the process where the minutes that you submit will be given, that'll be part of the package.
Wait, so then how does that work with general board getting the minutes ahead of the general meeting?
Board
Yeah,
members
because
will get
you
a
bring-
draft, they'll be getting draft minutes. So that's the point, so everyone, the minutes you see will be draft minutes because they haven't been approved yet.